Welcome everybody to another awesome webinar presented by Baselane. My name is Saad. I am head of business development and partnerships at Baselane. I am super excited to have Amelia and Grace back with us. And if you don't know Amelia and Grace, just to introduce them, we met them in the Baselane journey by partnering with them on Women Invest in Real Estate, which is called The Wire with two I's. And we started working together about 6 months ago, and we've been getting to know them ever since. And what's super exciting today is that they've launched, they co-authored a book in partnership with Bigger Pockets. So they'll tell you more about that. It's called the Self-Managing Landlord. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about their experiences, their insights related to this topic of the self-managing landlord, since I think a lot of us here are in that category, including myself. And so super excited to have you here, and welcome Grace and Amelia. I'd love for you to just say a quick hello and introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. My name is Amelia McGee, and I have been investing in real estate since 2019. My portfolio currently consists of 41 doors, and I live and invest in Des Moines, Iowa. I self-managed my properties all the way up until 36 units, and I then hired an internal property manager. So I think I have a little bit to say about self-managing. My portfolio consists of midterm rentals, which are 30-day stays, short-term rentals, and long-term rentals. And I've done a handful of different strategies like BRRRR, flipping, private money, etc. So I have some experience with different strategies as well.
Awesome.
And I'm Grace Gudenkauf. I invest in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I have about 25 doors, which I also self-manage with an internal manager, which we can chat about what that looks like. But I'm excited to say hello to you all. We always say we love an active chat, so we don't just feel like we're staring at a blank screen. So say hello, where you're from, ask questions. But I currently live in Tucson, Arizona, so I now have a little bit of experience of being a long distance investor. Sounds super fancy. So if anybody has questions about that, happy to answer, and we're just excited to be here.
That's awesome. I've got my notebook out because I'm also an out-of-state landlord, so I'm curious to learn more from both of you. Just some housekeeping really quickly. So today's webinar is being recorded. It will be posted on Baselane's YouTube channel, and we will share the recording with all of you and others as a follow-up, as well as all the information related to the book and all of that, so that you guys have access to the wire, the book, and you can follow them. Just a quick plug there. And for those who are new to the video and watching us on YouTube, just a little bit about Baselane. So Baselane is an online banking and financial platform built for independent real estate investors who spend countless hours doing financial busy work, not having the proper visibility and really understanding of their performance and their portfolio and their rental property finances. And what we're our goal is to help you save time, take back that time that you spend on all these busy tasks to gain more clarity and control and to grow your passive income. And we do that by providing you with three things, really. Business checking account, which is a digital business checking account that helps you really automate and really save a lot of time and organize better, with our own proprietary bookkeeping software with all the reports that you need, as well as our online rent collection tools and property management tools. So that is a very quick overview of Baselane if you're new to Baselane. So check out the description below and take a look at all the things that we've posted about that. And yeah, I think I'm very excited to just get started here. I had pulled up something I wanted to quickly share with everybody so you can actually see the book before I get into the questions, because I also love the color and the
Thank
visuals.
You.
Oh, there it is. Oh, you have it. Perfect. I don't need to do it. So
it lives on
the book. Yeah, so I guess we've done the intros. I do want to learn a little bit more about your background so we can understand, where the book came from and what the book is all about. So maybe I'll start a little with that. I'm just curious about the inspiration of the book, like how you got to that, and then we can, talk a little bit more about the insights. While we're doing that, we do have a poll here that we're going to launch just so we can get to know everybody in the audience. So please take a look at the poll. It's only 3 or 4 questions. It'll take you a few seconds. So please fill that out for us and let us know so we can contextualize the discussion for you, and keep the chat active. We're all three of us are looking at it and our team, so we'll be answering questions as we go.
Yeah, and if you're responding just to hosts and panelists in the chat, everybody else can't see it. So make sure you have it set to everyone, because I see some people are responding to hosts and panelists only. But the way the book came about is Bigger Pockets approached Grace and I. We had been in the Bigger Pockets circle, and they were like, hey, we have this idea for a book. We think you'd be good authors for it. And we were so excited. We were like, wow, what could it possibly be? And when they told us self-managing, I'm not going to lie, I want to be honest, we weren't over the moon excited about that topic, because that's not super sexy. That's not what, this shiny object that people are really interested in. But the more we got to thinking about it, the more we were like, no, we can write a really powerful book. We can really teach landlords how to run their rental properties like a business, instead of just being in that mom and pop mindset of, having no systems and processes, accepting rent any which way, not signing good leases, things like that. And so So once we started to think about it like that, we got excited for it.
That's awesome. And yeah, I have so many questions about this. So I'm trying to collect my thoughts. But before we do that, let's take a look at the poll so I think we can contextualize the discussion for everybody here. So the first question is, how many rental properties do you currently own? So we've got about, let's look at the percentage. So 0 properties, 5%, 1 property, 35%. So about a third of the folks. 2 properties, 20%, 3 properties, 2%, 4 to 10 is in about another third, and then 11 or more is 12%. So the vast majority of folks have either 1 to 2 or 4 to 10. So that's kind of the range. And then what type of rentals are in your portfolio? We've got the vast majority are midterm, long-term. That's one answer. So everybody answers the same. So midterm/long-term. 8% have short-term. So not as many short-term folks here. 8% in fix and flip, and 13% in owner-occupied multifamily. What is your current self-management strategy? Okay, so this is a good one. 70%
Ooh.
said I self-manage all of my own properties. So this is who we want to talk to actually, and you're gonna get a lot out of this. I only use property managers. That's 18%, and then 13% of folks said I use a mix of property managers and self-management. That's kind of where I am also today, trying to figure that out. And what are you hoping to learn more about today? Okay, so this is actually even better. So 92% said tips to make self-management easier. 45% said I can always self-manage as I grow. If I can always self-manage as I grow. Like, is there a way to do that? 53% said the vendors that can help me self-manage, the team, I guess. And then 74% said tools I need to self-manage. And so all really good, amazing poll results here. So thank you all for answering those questions. Super helpful. I think it helps our guests as well. And I guess with that, I will ask the kind of $1,000,000 question, which is related to why do you self-manage instead of hiring a property manager? And what I'd love for you guys to do is, obviously, like, I haven't gotten the book yet, full disclosure, I'm waiting for it. So hopefully I'll get my audiobook going and just finish my current one and go to the next one. And I'd love to also understand what we can expect to learn in that book related to the topics we're going to talk about. But most people always wonder, like, when should I self-manage? When do I hire a property manager? Why? Is there a certain size after which you do that, right? So that's kind of the big question that I have first. Maybe we can start with that.
Absolutely. There are two main reasons to why you should self-manage, and it comes down to profit and quality. Obviously, on the top of everybody's mind is profit. You can save 8 to 10% plus all the hidden fees. But another aspect a lot of people forget about is quality. When you have a property management company, by nature, they have to manage so many properties to stay in business. Your properties can't be first priority. When you get to self-manage with systems and processes, or maybe build an internal team, you can do so many things to ensure that your tenants are happier with a better property, which means they pay more money and they stay longer. All of those things affect your bottom line, which is why we invest at the end of the day.
Okay, that second one, you caught my attention. So what you're telling me is I can make more money and keep my tenants happier. And there's a question already in the chat here. So based on this, just an overarching, maybe one quick overview of what's in the book. I know we're going to talk about some of those topics, but do you mind just giving an overview? What can we expect to learn from the book so that everybody can be prepared for that?
Totally. So we broke the book down into 4 parts. And the first part of the book is about setting up your business. We think that's really important. So that that talks about some things like how to set up systems and processes, how to get your bank accounts in order, what tech stack you need for self-managing. And then the second part is the rental essentials. So that talks about actually renting out your property, the leasing, tenant screening, showing the property, all those little nitty-gritty details. Part 3 is difficult situations and continued maintenance. And then part 4 is expanding your business. So we talk about scaling with an internal property manager and then increasing your profitability without buying more properties. We really like that it's broken down into 4 parts too, because if you're already someone that's self-managing and maybe you already know how to price your rental, list your rental, you don't even need to read that part of the book. But if you're struggling on handling difficult situations or starting to run your business like a business and getting it set up that way, then you can just read those certain parts of the book.
I love that. Thanks for the overview. So that's super helpful. And just maybe as a teaser around the business setup, what aspects are you focusing on? Are we talking about the legal aspect of the LLC, kind of tax, those kinds of things? Is it financial, like setting up Baselane and all that stuff? Or is it a combination of all of those things?
It's a combination. Obviously, with your tech stack, you need to have something that's going to be powerful for you and your business. When it comes to banking, Baselane is a great solution. But another big piece of it is mindset and knowing, okay, everything can't can't live in my head. I have to make, checklists. I need to write things down. I need to make quick guides to organize my important financial information, important business information. I need to create standard operating procedures to tell myself how to run the business so I don't have to be burnt out trying to make everything up and fly by the seat of your pants every single time you go to do something in your business.
That's awesome. And can we expect, like, obviously, I'm sure you share your insights, but also examples and how to do certain things in the book so that people can implement the learnings?
Well, the good thing about Amelia and I is we have got a lot of lessons learned and we share a lot of those in the book. We've got a lot of case studies from other amazing investors who talk about things that they did and lessons they learned and therefore the systems that they implemented. So I think Amelia and I are pretty candid throughout the book on a lot of things that we've done wrong so that you don't have to do them wrong. You can skip that part and just do things right from the get-go.
Awesome. And so just in your experience, I guess, I'm curious, when did you start, both of you start, like, I know you said you hired an internal or you have internal property manager. So how did you start? Were you self-managing before and kind of didn't have a team and then you added a team? Like, how did that experience happen?
Yeah, so I bought my first buy and hold property in 2020. I had done a flip in 2019 and used the profits to buy my first triplex. I did not house hack that. And also, Grace and I are not realtors, and we had no experience in real estate investing prior to getting started. And we didn't come from families that invested in real estate. So I purchased my first triplex. I didn't know the first thing about being a landlord, but I knew how to do the research and put in the work to figure it out. So I used Bigger Pockets quite a bit to, understand, okay, what are the steps to even being a landlord? I really, in my mind, it was like, okay, I'll fix these units up and then I'll find tenants and I'll start collecting rent every month. Little old me had no idea that there was so much more that went into it. But I think that not letting that stop me really actually served me well, because the truth of the matter is you're never really going to know everything before you get started. And it is going to be a lot of trial and error, no matter how hard you study or how much you research ahead of time. You're just going to have to learn some things the hard way, I guess. So for me, no experience, just kind of dove in head first. And the reason why I chose to self-manage was kind of twofold. One, I'm in a smaller market. That is one of my more rural areas that I invest. So the option of having a property manager, there really wasn't even one. And then two, I wanted to quit my full-time job as soon as possible. So I needed to keep every last dime in my pocket as possible so I could replace my W-2 income. And just to give you numbers, that triplex was bringing in like $1,500 a month. So I would have been paying a property manager just right off the top 10% of 150. So that $150. And I needed to keep that. If you multiply that by 12, I'm not going to do the mental math, but that's a little bit of money that I could use to then purchase another property the next year. So I wanted to keep that for myself.
That's super helpful. So in that example, one was based on your strategy and your goal. You were trying to figure out like what makes sense. And also, I guess, is it implied that you had the time as well to do the work that you needed to as well, based on whatever, your job plus this extra work, you were able to actually manage both?
Yeah. So I was still working a full-time W-2, but I was in one of those W-2s that I worked 40 hours a week, but I maybe worked 30 hours in my job just to be, I think a lot of people can relate to that. So I had time to do that. So maybe if you don't have time, I don't know, self-managing might not be right for you, but for me, I was willing to put in that extra time because I had it and because I was willing to make a little bit more money off of that.
One thing I want to add to that is, of course, there's going to be people who have a super demanding W-2, very high responsibilities at work where it really just doesn't make sense to self-manage, and that's okay. But that's a very small amount of people. For the vast majority of people, if you put the right systems and processes in place and you really start with a business mindset, you can do so much to proactively prevent issues, proactively prevent spending more time and energy and money and all of those infamous headaches, the 2 a.m. leaky toilet call, if you just go about it the right way.
That's great. And I know that a lot of the folks listening, there's a third of folks here that are in the 1-2 property range, a little bit more than that. And so, how many hours do we need for those 2 properties per week, I guess, is a question. And I guess that's the equation you're looking at when you're saying, do I self-manage versus property manage? I guess my question actually is coming back to, I think we skipped over this one. Like, does self-management, and I'm going to go to the scale question later, mean that it's just you? Or what does it actually mean, right? And what is the book teaching us about self-management? Because I know a lot of people are asking like, hey, I want to scale to 4 units and 10 units. And can I always self-manage that? But I kind of just want to define, if you can help me, maybe Grace, like what is self-management? How do you define it?
We define self-management as keeping it in-house, whether it's you're the property manager, or you have somebody on your payroll on your team who's your property manager. Self-management is not hiring a third-party company who does management for multiple other people. So Amelia and I, we both self-managed as ourselves, a party of one. For Amelia said like 35 doors, I was probably 20. And then I hired somebody for 10 hours a week. And I said, hey, help me with this leasing stuff. Help me with these maintenance requests. Then I rolled that person into a full-time person on my payroll, my W-2, working for my business. So their full priority at work is my portfolio, not my portfolio and 92 other portfolios. So that's what we define self-management as. And if you're somebody who wants to scale to do real estate full-time or do bigger projects, it's an incredible option to keep the quality and keep the costs down.
That's super helpful. So I'm going to go to the next question quickly. I don't think we're going to talk a lot about this today because this is about self-managing. Does it make sense, having said that, does it make sense, or when does it make sense to hire a third party, in this case, which I think we're defining as what we call property management, right? A property manager that is not self-managing. So that's a third party. What are your thoughts on whether to do that and, when to do that, et cetera? And it doesn't seem like you've done it for your business and you've already scaled to a large portfolio.
Yeah, no, we haven't. And a lot of the investors that we've talked to that have had negative experiences doing so. Now, I'm not saying that every single property management company out there is going to be bad quality, but it's definitely something to take into consideration. I would say one area where it may make sense to hire a third party is if you do have one of those really either time demanding jobs or a very high income, high salary, where let's say that you're a doctor and you make $500,000 a year. Your hourly time is worth so much that it just doesn't make sense for you to be self-managing. It makes sense for you to hire those hours out elsewhere and have someone else do it for you. Grace, what are some other situations?
I want to just point out that we don't view the latter as being self-manage and then hire it out. What we talk about in the book is there's a third option. Everybody thinks you either self-manage like a chicken with your head cut off and it's stressful, or you hire it out and you pay a ton of money for low quality. We're saying, hey, there's a third option. It's systems and processes and then build it internally. So neither of us have plans to ever hire a property management company. We're taking a different route completely that we think a lot of people don't talk about. And it is, again, if you put the numbers on paper, we pay about a third to a fourth of what we would pay if we had a property management company. And we're getting 10 times the quality because this is their full-time job managing, well, at least mine, it's their full-time job to manage the properties and doing an excellent job at it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that makes sense. So I like that. So this is a sort of a third option, just as you said, and it's you're managing, but you're hiring somebody internally to manage, so the quality's higher. Therefore, tenants are happier. They're probably going to stay with you longer, and you can probably control not only your revenue but your cost better. It sounds like,
and it makes your life easier.
And it makes your life easier. Okay.
Like that's the end goal, but you don't have to hire an internal property manager if you have even 5 to 10 doors, 5 to 10 properties. We're just saying that as if you are in the mindset of, I want to scale to maybe be a full-time investor or to be able to quit my W-2 or to have 30 properties. I think someone asked, like, when do you hire it out?
Right.
First of all, it's personal, but you don't have to self-manage forever if you set up those processes and can then bring that portion of your business in-house with an internal hire.
It also makes a difference if it's midterm, short-term, or long-term. You can probably manage, Amelia said she managed 30 units long-term by herself. A long-term rental, if you put the right person in and you have a good house, take an hour a month per property. That's not very much time. I have a lot of tenants who I don't hear for months and months and months because they pay rent, they take care of it, and nothing happened. A midterm rental, there's a lot more turnovers, there's a lot more things going. So that's probably going to be maybe 5 hours a month, maybe more per property. property. So we had a
Yeah.
huge mix of midterms. So it just depends on what your portfolio looks like, and also maybe reverse engineering. Can you take that time and make more money elsewhere? Flipping, being a realtor, working at your job,
Right.
wholesaling.
Yeah. And I guess I have lots of questions. There's some questions in the chat here too. And I think we talked a little bit about scaling. And before we talk about like when does it make sense to hire somebody inside of the self-management scope that we're talking about, maybe a little bit around that. So do you cover in the book the types of people you can hire? Right? Like, are we talking about local in country? Are we talking about virtual assistants? What are some of the things you explore in the book related to that?
I think a one that a lot of people forget is a bookkeeper. A huge part of property management is bookkeeping. There are features in Baselane to do that, but at some point when you have so many properties, that could be a great thing to delegate for 200, 300, $400 a month. That doesn't mean you're in charge of a full-time W-2 person. The next person
Right.
could be a boots on the ground if you're long distance. Who's somebody who can do your showings?
That's
Who
a great
can
point. Yeah. Sorry, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I guess on the bookkeeping and there's two questions here. So related to that, where do you find these people? I'm just asking one example. Like, are we talking about like offshore, like a virtual assistant, or is this like somebody that's more local?
We've
you
done
can do
both.
either.
Yeah, Grace currently uses a VA that is in, where's he at?
Pakistan.
Pakistan as her bookkeeper, but that's more hands-on. Whereas I have hired out someone here in the States, who's more expensive, but it's much more passive for me compared to Grace.
Okay.
So, all our answers are very personal to what our own strategies are. Just like anyone on the call, you have to just decide what's best for you.
Yeah, and I guess we like at what stage did you feel like you needed those types of folks in your team? Because we're talking about 30 units, 35 units,
Yeah.
right? So was that at 10, 15, 20?
It's
Well, I
not
have my bookkeeping horror story.
Yeah.
And bookkeeping is one, and that's why I laughed when you were saying that. Bookkeeping is something that we really think you should get a system for and maybe even hire immediately, especially if you're going to scale, because I didn't do that. And then it ended up costing me $8,000 over the course of over a year to sort out all
Wow.
my messes, because I didn't have my landlord accounts. If I would have had Baselane to have everything set up in different accounts with my different cards, my life would have been a lot easier. But everything was a big mess and it didn't stop. And I ended up paying $8,500 for somebody else to figure it out for me. So don't make that mistake.
That's painful. That's a great point. And I think a lot of folks that join Baselane, you have access to this tool. You have the banking that helps you organize the virtual accounts and cards in a way that saves you the pain of avoiding the bookkeeping. I know you're doing it because I've done it and I'm a former CPA.
That's what I did.
We all are busy, right? So we just don't have time. We're like, oh, we'll get to it next weekend, right? And so it's super important. And then that just helps you just minimize the number of things you have to manually input. I will also share just quick plug for me. As I scaled my units, even with Baselane, we needed still somebody there. And so we actually have hired a full-time person that's not a virtual assistant, but just full-time in the team now. They're based in the Philippines. And it is a fixed cost for me monthly, but it's worth my time because of my time, how much is my time worth? And she's actually doing bookkeeping, maintenance management, just coordinating. Now we're going to get her set up on deal analysis. She's going to do all these things.
Ooh,
Love that.
And the Baselane side of things, she's helping us organize things that, we need to do research to figure out, what was that receipt for? What is this expense for? You have to catch up and then you have to like keep going. So I just wanted to share a little bit of mine. There's more questions here. So let's get to some of the questions because I know people are waiting for that. So Demi Lee asks, how do you deal with the slumlord narrative? She put slumlord in quotes when trying to set boundaries with tenants as well as growing your portfolio.
That's a good question. We try to be the most ethical landlords as possible. We really don't like the slumlord narrative. We try as hard as possible to not fall into that category, and I really don't think we do. The thing about that is if you can set yourself up with a great reputation in the markets that you're in, you treat your tenants fairly, you charge, appropriate rent, but yet you're firm and you follow your policies, your tenants are going to enjoy living at your property. They're going to stay for longer, and they're going to tell your friends what a good landlord you are. And not only that, but other landlords in the area might hear that you're a good landlord and bring you opportunities to buy their properties when they're ready to retire. I know that personally because that happens to me in the markets that I'm in. I have a good reputation for being great to my tenants, and I've been brought deals, plus my tenants stay a long time.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And I'm going to go through some of the questions and then we'll get back to some of the kind of agenda items. how do you all have profit minimums across the board? Have you ever accepted $100 to $200 profits? I'm assuming that means, the per door, monthly profits, trying to figure out what it's worth. Thank you.
We would say as long as you're accounting for vacancy, repairs, CapEx, pest control, management, if you are hiring it to a third party, $100 to $200 per door for a single family might not be out of the question. I have properties that probably make $150 a door after all of that. But if you're not counting any of that and you're still only making $100 to $200 a door, I would say that gets a little dangerous.
That's a great point. And another thing we notice is that a lot of us like pro forma out the vacancy and the repair budget per month. We don't actually move the money into separate accounts to allocate that money to those accounts. And this is another thing that with Baselane, we've been trying to really educate everybody about, is because if you say 5% vacancy on a $1,000 rent, take the 5%, which is $50, and put it in a virtual account that is called vacancy, right? Every month. And that should be moving. That's not money to touch. That's not money to take out. Same thing with maintenance reserve and so on. So that's a great point. I'll go to the next question here. How do you manage showings while self-managing out of state? I guess, Grace, that's for you.
There's a few ways you could do it. You could hire a newer realtor for a fixed fee per showing to do it. You can use Tenant Turner. That's an app, I believe, that allows virtual showings and actually like pre-qualifies tenants. It's pretty tech savvy. I hired that was a huge reason why I hired somebody internally, because I wanted my boots on the ground so that I didn't have to do it yet. And then a fourth person, I know a lot of people who use their maintenance person to do their showings. Or you could even consider your current tenants, although I don't love that idea.
Yeah. Do you end up ever using a realtor and do the kind of 1 month fixed rent cost as a way to do the listings as well?
We do not, because we did it ourselves until we were able to hire somebody on our payroll.
Okay, gotcha. That's awesome.
That's an option, but that's a large chunk to pay to someone. And that's what a lot of property management companies charge. So
right. And also the tools are there. The tools, like you said, I'm sure that's the next question. Like, what are some of the tools you highlight for long distance out of state landlords? Are there any things to kind of just talk about a little bit here? Some of those tools that you use. So Tenant Turner, you mentioned. I actually haven't heard of Tenant Turner, so I'll check that out. That's a good one.
Yeah. Some other tools that maybe aren't necessarily for long distance, because again, my team is there physically, but some tools we love are Monday.com to manage your renovations, LastPass to store passwords for your team, QuickBooks to do your accounting if you need to grow out of something into something bigger. Another thing I do a lot of 3D walkthroughs. I can't remember the name of the app, but there's a bunch of free ones. That's something I love because I can't see the property. I need to know what the layout is.
Got it. That's super helpful. Yeah, that's great. And we'll share some of these. I'm assuming they're in the book, and so you guys will find out more about that. How are you finding people? So one person's asking, how are you finding people like the bookkeepers that you're working with?
Yeah, word of mouth referrals is huge. So if you're in any local investor Facebook groups, or for a bookkeeper or anything like that, doesn't even need to be a local group. It can just be an investor group. Bigger Pockets, I think, maybe has a bookkeeper finder tool, or they have lots of different tools where you can find people that you're looking for. That's huge. Where else?
We have a network of bookkeepers. If you need someone specifically, reach out. We have wire approved bookkeepers, but for the internal people, awesome. I use the Indeed.com.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. Those are great trips. And I think the network is really important. That's why it's a relationship business. Keep the network open, keep the relationships open so that, and really warm so you can reach out and help them and help yourself as well. This is more of a strategic question here by Candice Chen. Do you recommend to create an LLC or a separate management company to manage your own properties and charge the 10% or whatever fee back to, the business for doing that?
I can answer that one because I do have two separate entities. But first of all, you should always talk to an attorney and a tax strategist because it depends on your business. I have an S Corp that I do my flipping out of and I hire my team out of. And then I have an LLC that collects my rent. I am not charging an actual 10% back to that LLC because then that's more income that I have to pay taxes on. So I just basically run my management at a net zero.
Okay, got it. That's helpful. But yeah, definitely reach out to tax.
But I'm not a CPA.
Yeah, and definitely do that. Awesome. So there's two more questions here. I guess one, when does it make sense to add more doors in portfolio? Do you wait until the property is all paid before taking another mortgage, or do you go for the next deal once you have enough cash locked and loaded?
Personally, I've never paid off a property prior to buying another property. I don't know many investors that do, although if that's your personal strategy, that's amazing. If you're debt adverse or risk averse, I think that's really powerful to be able to say that you have fully paid off properties. However, currently Grace and I are in the scaling mindset where we are utilizing the tool of debt to continue to grow our portfolios. Although I would like to say I think we're using debt smartly and conservatively and not over leveraging ourselves.
That's a great one. In terms of the debt target ratios, do you have a certain, are you at like 65% LTV, 70? What's kind of your threshold?
I actually just ran this the other day on my entire portfolio, and I think I'm 52% leveraged.
Oh,
So I have
wow.
quite a bit of equity in there because I buy a lot of under market value properties and add equity to them, and then either refinance out at the full 80% on some or leave a lot of equity in when I refinance and just keep that equity sitting there as a cushion.
That's amazing. That's a really good ratio. Excellent. I think most people are north of 65% usually. And like I think there's, I guess, were you always at that ratio or did you kind of mature into that? Like when you were starting out, were you taking out more cash on the refis?
Yeah, when I was starting out, I mean, I think that all of my properties were at 80% LTV because that's what my commercial lender was allowing me to operate at. And then yeah, just through the 5 years of equity gain plus just forcing that appreciation through value add, I've gotten to that number. But Grace, what do you think your portfolio's at?
I haven't ran the numbers. I do tend to do a lot of burr projects where I'll refinance the full amount to put it on the next project. But I also have a few properties that have 15-year loans
Fantastic.
on them. So they're getting paid down pretty quickly. And I was just looking at one the other day, a couple duplexes that have the 15 years, and I'm at like 50%. That's probably 50% loan to value, but that's like my best property. I don't think I have anything less than 50, although 50% would be a great goal.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I guess maybe a couple of questions now. I'll ask more in the 2024 market just to finish this up. I know we're coming up on time. In the high inflation market, high interest rate market, how are you guys making the numbers work? Are they working? Are you kind of more in the optimization? Are you still growing?
I actually pivoted a little bit to flipping, which is also why I was able to hire a full-time manager because I knew with the time I could give up on management, I could make more money flipping to pay for that person.
Mm,
But I currently am looking for bigger deals. I'd like to, in the second half of the year, buy a bigger multifamily property. But yeah, you just need to look a little bit harder, negotiate a little bit more, but there's always deals.
Yeah. And for
yeah, that's
me,
a great point.
I'm, looking into the midterm rental strategy more when I'm running my numbers, short-term rentals, um, seller financing or creative financing, although that's a whole nother can of worms. But I am still purchasing, properties with bank financing at, in Iowa, I think my last loan I closed was at 6.25, although that was a while back. It's at 7.25 now. That was back in March. So, but if the numbers work, like Grace said.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to come back to kind of the bigger point of undertone. I think you mentioned this earlier on. I know everybody's asking questions about how do you find this person? What's the tool I need to use? And yada, 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 right? But somehow both of you were able to do this and you've scaled it through 15 doors, 20 doors, 30 doors, and you're running this system successfully. So what is the secret sauce? Like, is it the mindset, right? Is it just that you just know how to find really good people? What do you guys think the arching theme is here? And both of you have done it actually separately and also now together, right? Because you're
Mhm.
partners in the book. So I'm curious, like, what do you think it takes to be successful in this business? That's really what I'm trying to understand.
I think that and I have now gone through two phases of our business. Phase one was scrappy, get the deal done, do whatever it takes. My time is free. I'll spend as much time as possible to make something happen. And I remember when I first started, I told myself, I will never let the capital keep me from buying a good deal. I did private money, creative financing, whatever. Now, and what the book talks about is we're in a new phase. We're in the phase of being the CEO of our businesses and knowing my time is worth money, is worth a lot of money. And I am going to delegate things that I'm not good at and I don't like to people who will do it better than me. to continue to grow my business. So it's okay to be in either phase, and there's a phase for every investor. You can start scrappy, but I think mindset is huge, and recognizing at what point do you need to switch your mindset into whatever resource is most precious to you, whether it's time, money.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that, and I think there's a lot in there, and yeah, I appreciate that. You know, if you're starting out, you may be in the scrappy sort of get stuff done mode, and as you're scaling up, you might be trying to find efficiencies, and as you're getting to that level of like 30 doors and so on, now you're really trying to figure out how to allocate your time and what's worth it, what's not worth it. So it's not that necessarily anybody with even one property needs to be at that level yet.
Right.
And I do have a follow-up question to that, but Amelia, what are your thoughts on that question before I ask my follow-up?
Um, Sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question was like, how did you break through, right? Because you got through
Oh,
the
yeah.
4 door, 10 door threshold. Like, what does it really take uh, to get
Being a
there?
problem solver and just having the gumption to really want it, and being someone that takes action. We talk to lots of people who want to invest in real estate. They really want to invest in real estate. They talk about it all the time, but they never pull the trigger. And I'm here to tell you that you just have to get that first deal done, even if it's just a base hit and not a home run, even if it just makes a couple $100s a month. And I'm not telling you to invest, you know, riskily, if that's a word, but you do just have to take action, and you will learn so much more from doing that first deal than you ever will from watching YouTube videos or reading books or, looking on online forums. You just have to be able to get up enough gall to actually move forward with something.
Yeah, I love that, and I love the bias to action. And I have one more question today, and by the way, like the books that you get, they're not sort of one-time reads. Like you could see some books right there that I have. They're there because I read them all the time because I forget stuff. And you have to like, what? Wait a minute, like what was that thing they said? Like, how do you manage that manager? Like you have to go back and reference those things. So I would just want to say that, but. I guess coming back to what you both said, really useful feedback. And we're talking about phases of where people are and what they should be doing, whether they're 1 door or 10 door or 20 door. So my last question for the day is, are there things, I'm sure the book goes into a lot of detail that people should be doing, even if they're just, starting out, one property, which is awesome, 10 properties, 4 properties, that will help them run things more efficiently, have a sort of less painless experience as an owner investor.
Yes. Write down how you do things. It can be a bullet point checklist of where do you advertise? When do you do it? What are the things you put in the description? But to save yourself from constantly reinventing the wheel, and to create structures and frameworks for a team in the future, or even just for yourself, so that in the future you can go back and say, this is the exact step of things I have to do. I don't have to think about it because I know the answer.
Write it down. So journaling a little bit. And nowadays it's easy. You can do it on your phone, notepad, right? You can voice notes. The
Mhm.
ChatGPT, OpenAI just launched their assistant yesterday, I think. So there's a lot of options here for you to do that. I love that. Amelia, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if you haven't purchased a property yet, one thing that you can do to set yourself up for success is get really good at running the numbers. I think that that could be overlooked, but real estate investing is a financial game. I like to say, it is a business, but it's not one of those businesses that's hobby based or because you really love it. Like if you own a bakery or some sort of upholstery or knitting or what, that's a hobby-based business. The numbers maybe aren't as important. Real estate is all about the numbers. So you need to get really good at analyzing deals. And if you haven't purchased a property, but you really want to, you should be looking at 10 deals a day until you find one that you're ready to move forward with.
I love that. I love that. And make offers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't wait. Make an offer. If you're gonna lowball and get the rejection, it's okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I will add one more thing here. If people are on the go and they're wanting to just calculate stuff quickly, if you go to Baselane's website and go under resources, there's a free calculator there. that I use for my spread. It was my spreadsheet that we made into a nice fancy calculator. It's there. I'm sure the Wire folk, I know you have a bunch of resources on this too. So you're not lacking the resources. Like if you're going to run deal, and I'm just going to share it here. This is it right here. It's super quick and easy. Just plug in the price and some rents, and you can do more advanced settings in here if you want to really tweak it. But it gives you a bunch of information about what the numbers look like. Obviously, you have to adjust the loan rates these days. It's not so pretty anymore.
No longer 4.5.
Yeah. So you can tell we made it about 2 years ago. But yeah, I think that I love that. So I think there's a couple of things here that maybe we can just summarize for everybody here. So one is go over to Women Invest in Real Estate and check out The Wire, as well as check out the book, The Self-Managing Landlord. We're going to send you a follow-up with the link as well, as in case you forget that. You don't wait. Get an audio. I don't know. Is it available in audiobook yet, or is it only okay? So get the audiobook if you can't.
Well, wait. I'm not sure. I know it's ebook. I don't know if
okay,
audio.
maybe it's ebook. Yeah, so you can get an ebook or the physical copy. So definitely do that and take notes. We said like write things down, right? As Grace was saying, write it down. Note the way that you do things and learn from your mistakes. We talked about a bunch of things in terms of tools and all that. We're not going to go back and list all of them, but Amelia had said this earlier in the call, and she said it again, is mindset and action-orientedness is the key to doing anything that you're doing. So, continue doing that. And I know that there were some open questions, but we do have to wrap it up. So I'm just going to check to see if there's any more that kind of we didn't hit on at all before we do that.
One thing I'll add really quick is, like we talked about, getting yourself set up for success at the beginning. Baselane is free to use. There's no reason you shouldn't be using it and leveraging it, or at least testing it out, even if you have 0 or 1 properties, because it will set you up for success as you scale.
That's great. I know Grace is saying that because she just spent what, $9,000 on a bookkeeping
Yes.
mess. When you spend that money,
Traumatized.
you feel the pain. You never forget it.
Yeah.
And even for me, before I started Baselane, before I joined Baselane, I was not able to keep up, even though I'm a former person from finance. And I didn't say this earlier, but the person that I hired, she's going back and adding in entries into Baselane for us right now, so we can get everything into Baselane for like the last few years as well that we didn't have, because we just didn't have it organized, and we want to see the full picture. And that's been another project we're working on. So it's so important, because if you don't know your performance and your numbers, like what's the point of doing all this work anyway, right? Because you don't know if you're earning money. And so I think we are going to wrap it up. And I want to thank you both so much. Grace, thank you. And Amelia, thank you. Super excited to read the book. So before I see you next time, I will have read it, promise. And I'm looking forward to working with both of you more, as you go from here. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's listening. Good luck, everybody.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night. Take care.